Hello folks, welcome to UFOs Around the World. We are going live again tonight, and this one is about how aliens eat. It's also about many other things to do with the aliens and UFOs, and it's Wendelle Stevens. So we're going to get straight into it. I wanted to try something tonight as well to try and bring people's chats up, but I think I've cocked it up. And I refuse to use StreamYard because it looks dog shit and I ain't paying 50 quid a month for it. So I'm trying to do workarounds. So if you see me pissing about, I'm trying to sort that out. How are we all anyway? Welcoming Cosmic, welcoming Booby Bookie fucking Kinney, welcoming Denmark, Peter Schmeichel. Right, let's go straight into it tonight. No messing about. Why do I never have it on? I do this every time. This is the one. Right, folks, we're going to play it. Norway as well, so that's Denmark, Peter Schmeichel. We've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in. Any other people in? As you can tell, I'm a Man United fan. You'll like this one. If you've not seen this one, you will like it.
Okay, I'm Wendelle Stevens, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force, retired. I have been investigating this phenomena for over 50 years. It actually began in the Air Force.
Just let me know the sound's okay and everything. I can turn it up a little bit if you're struggling.
When I was reassigned to Alaska, I was working in the Foreign Technology Division of the Air Technical Intelligence Center at Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. I was a test pilot in the flight test division there. All pilots had to have an additional, actually a primary duty. Flying was your additional duty. So my primary duty was in the Air Technical Intelligence Center screening the captured war documents from the former enemies, and they were coming in by the ship road to the ports and the truckload to Air Materiel Command. I had save lists from our contractors, government contractors. I had save lists from the government. We had our own save lists, and I had my own particular save list. And what we didn't save was sent to the shredder, was shredded and burned. And some interesting things came back. One thing, for example, that went across my desk that I later was very sorry about was a map from Germany. It was a battle map, and it was in color, and it showed the array of forces near the end of the war, near the collapse of Germany, and it showed what the forces coming from the east and from the west, and what looked like an escape corridor to the south if anybody wanted to get out. That was all white. Now on that map were 9 little Saturn-shaped symbols stamped on with a rubber stamp. And I didn't know what they were, and I didn't know what they meant at the time, and I sent the map to the shredder and it was burned. And later I found that those were the Kugelblitz development facilities run by the Germans, where they developed their own disk programs. And then I was sorry that I had destroyed it. But later I found a copy of a similar map in a book published in Canada on what they called the Samizdat Press by Mattern and Friedrich, that showed a similar map, or maybe even the same map, that showed those 9 positions with the little Saturn-shaped symbols. And they were explained as representing the 9 research facilities developed by the Germans for that program. That program, incidentally, was kept under the tightest control by the SS. It developed under the SS, and they decided to keep it under their control in a special staff office called the Entwicklungsstelle SSE4. And they controlled all of the development information on the various disk programs. They had several. By the time the war ended, they had 9. Now, when the Germans were reversed in Russia and they saw they weren't going to win the war anymore, they began dismantling those factories and evacuating them. The ones that they couldn't successfully dismantle, they just blew up and destroyed them. We believe that the Russians captured one partly intact, enough to get some information out of it. We were unable to capture an intact facility, but we did capture something like 9 of their discs in various stages of development and shipped them back to the White Sands Missile Test Area. Project Sign, as I said, was organized on the ground floor as a public information office. And they were only given information that was purged and sent down to them from upstairs. So what they got had a lot of blacked out, censorship blacked out on their reports, and they had to conclude for the public what caused the situation from what was already deleted, which they didn't know. So the public accepted the idea that this was...
You just said my intro's terrible. Sorry, I've got to stop for that. That is the best song on the internet. Drop a L in the comments for Joe-esque. Jealous little dweeb.
The agency to contact on new reports, and they began to get letter reports from the public itself, which were different from the reports that were coming down from upstairs. And they found that there seemed to be things really happening that were not, the upstairs didn't seem to know about. So they started following up on some of these letters and began to go out and look at a few of the cases and decided that there was more to this than meets the eye, and more than they were getting from upstairs. So they thought they were helping by the upstairs by collecting information, and they tried to investigate more and more and send it upstairs. This defeated the purpose, because now instead of explaining it all to the public, they're raising the interest level. So they closed Project Sign, boxed all the records, and reassigned everybody.
Yeah, the people that say they don't like that intro are people that don't research. They want to bypass that. Every live stream has an intro, right? That's got actual knowledge in every single lyric of that song. But yeah, they won't even realise that.
Then the cases continued, and reports kept coming in. The public now wants to know, well, who's going to handle it now? Where's the office we report these things to? So they had to reopen the office someplace, and the Air Force didn't want to take it. They did everything they could do to avoid it. They tried to get the government to give it to NASA. They tried to get them to give it to the Navy. They tried to get them to give it to the Army. They tried to avoid it every way they could, and finally the Chief of Staff of the Air Force says, no, you're going to take it. So they reopened the boxes and named it Project Grudge, appropriately named. This time they assigned a first lieutenant and a second.
Oh, was there a problem with the intro? Was there some technical issue? If there's that, then I apologise, but it shouldn't have been. I didn't do anything differently. I don't want to keep stopping and starting this because this is a really good interview. And do you remember when I spoke about the aliens and how they eat and stuff like that? It's mentioned in this one. So for people that don't know how these aliens supposedly eat and shit and stuff like that, it's explained halfway through this.
Lieutenant, 3 sergeants, and 2 secretaries. And someplace midway in Project Grudge, they added a captain, replaced the first lieutenant with a captain, Captain Ruppelt. The same thing happened with Project Sign, and Ruppelt began investigating cases on his own, a kind of a maverick. He didn't have authorization to do it, but he was getting information that was meaningful, and he would follow up on it. And he finally he collected his own information. He wrote a book, and he sold the book to a Book of the Month publishing house, and they published it. And when the Air Force found out about it, they ordered the publishing house to recall all the books and have the last chapter rewritten. Ruppelt had concluded that there was certainly something going on here with the last words, only time will tell. The government made him rewrite the whole last chapter, saying that there was really nothing to this, and that it was not worth spending a lot of money on investigating. And that was republished and sent out in the place of the first edition. So you can tell if you have an original edition, if it has if the last 3 words in the book say only time will tell, that's the original edition. Government failed to catch them all. There's a few out, but not many. The rest of them will have a different ending to the book. That was written by Captain Ruppelt. Now Ruppelt, because he did that, and because the staff now is looking for cases and collecting information, they closed Project Grudge. And the Air Force once more tried to get rid of it. Or again, they were ordered to take it on. So this time they looked for an officer, a climber, that will obey all the instructions. He tries to please his commander the best way he can all the time, anxious to be promoted. They found that in the form of Major Hector Quintanilla. When the commander of Air Materiel Command interviewed him and told him that he was going to be given all the material the Air Force had on the subject, and he was going to have to answer to the public, report to the public on this. He thought and wanted to believe and did believe that he had everything in his office. He still only had a ceiling classification of confidential. He only had purged reports, but he didn't care. He's trying to please his superiors by saying, and he really believed, I think, that he was being given everything. And that rocked along that way until the government hired the Condon. They were looking for somebody to take the wind out of the sails of the UFO phenomena, and they hired the Condon Committee to run an official investigation and find out if it was really necessary for the government to get into this investigation. Well, of course, they're in it all the time at the upper staff level, but they're trying to keep the public from knowing about that. So they found the one they were looking for in the form of the University of Colorado, which owed the government a few things, and they paid them $500,000 to run a proper investigation with a specific finding. Now, what kind of an investigation is that? They had to find what they found. That was what they were paid for. So they hired people that they thought would follow toe the line, would follow the directions of the director of the project, who was, gosh, I forget, Condon, Ulysses Condon from the Colorado University. And he had scientists that didn't agree with this project, and they felt independent, and one of them wrote a book, UFOs Yes, two more quit the project. When it came to writing the final report, they wrote the final report they thought it ought to get, and...
Okay, Joe, if you find it corny, that's fine. You can leave the channel. Feel free to leave the channel if you hate the song that much. Or we can just go on Morrison's car park and have it out Saturday night if you want. Whatever you want to do. Just shut up. I'm watching this.
And when it got to Condon, he said, no, we can't do that. And he rewrote the report. And that report that came out of that was Condon's report himself. And he cut out all the stuff that would support anything, and ended with a conclusion that there was not enough indication that this was a serious matter for the Air Force to be expending any more money in conducting research and investigating the cases. But an upper staff continued to do that anyway, and it was more people and more heavily funded than ever before. But that's what the projects were. So they closed Project Blue Book, sent all the files to the Air University at Montgomery, Alabama. That's where they are today. They're closed files. There is no public information office at this time to answer the question. If you look any place, they say the project was closed and the files are at Montgomery, Alabama. Go look at them.
No, we don't want Joel to go away. We want Joel to stay. He's been researching 38 years. He's watching my channel, so he knows a good channel, and doesn't he, obviously? Let's see it from that point of view.
At that time, the government had a standard rotation project. All the active duty officers would spend 2 years in the zone of interior, that's the United States, and then 2 years out of the zone of interior, that's an overseas assignment. And they'd rotate you back and forth. So I had been in the States for 2 years at the Air Materiel Command, and I was coming up for
Please hit that thumbs up, folks. It really does help the video and the like.
And I was supposed to be reassigned overseas for another 2 years, and when it came, it was an assignment to Anchorage, Alaska. Now, at that time, Alaska was a province, or it was a territory of the United States, and it was considered an overseas assignment because it was not part of the zone of interior at that time. And so when I got to Alaska, I found that I had been reassigned to a position outside of my specialty. My specialty was logistics, and I was assigned up there in an operations specialty, which I had no training for. And when I got to Anchorage, I found that I was going to be the assistant base operations officer for a properly trained base operations officer. But my additional duty would be to supervise a team of highly qualified, high classified civilian technicians, career technicians, that were installing special equipment aboard the B-29s that were being winterized in Anchorage Air Depot, and then flew their target profiles on Russia and coming back. And every crew had to fly this once every year. So the B-29s were already flying in the Arctic. We had a lot of reports indicating that the phenomena was coming from the Arctic. I think there was an upper staff level that thought the Russians might have developed something and be trying to use it or to experiment with it. We knew that the Russians had captured part of one of the Kugelblitz factories way up in north on the Russian border, which is north of Poland. And so I think that's what the upper staff had in mind when they set this project up. Now, what we did to the B-29s after they were winterized, where they changed the rubber seals to neoprene seals, a lot of things like that, so they wouldn't break down in the cold. Then my team would of civilians would install extra 35 millimeter cameras aboard. There's already a 16 millimeter cameras. There's a 16 millimeter camera in every gun position already on the B-29. We gave them a couple more handheld 16 millimeter cameras to carry around. We put a 35 millimeter camera aboard. We even had we had four 4x5 press cameras that took pictures on a 4-inch by 5-inch negative, good pictures on high density film. We put a Fairchild K20 camera aboard, which takes a picture on an 8-inch by 10-inch negative, a heavy thing that was hard to even carry around. We installed surge detectors in every electrical system on the B-29. I think there's 5. We installed radio frequency.
You did. Wendell knew quite a lot of stuff. Well, if you see my alien interview video yesterday, one of the letters was to him regarding that alien interview tape as well. I'd love to know what he knew about that tape.
The emission scanners aboard that scanned the radio frequency spectrum, homed on the strongest signal, copied it for 30 seconds, canceled it, and homed again until it got the next strongest signal, canceled that till it canceled them all, then it'd start over. And it recorded for 30 seconds, then start over. So this continually went on. We also installed ambient thermal detectors to measure rises in the ambient temperature aboard the aircraft. We installed magnetic detectors to tell us if there's any changes in the magnetic field at the times. But it was a good kit of equipment. And every time they experienced an incident, they were required to report back in a coded report to the home base. And we knew when they were coming in if they had experienced an incident. When they landed, we'd separate all the crew members and put them in separate rooms and then interrogate them one at a time with stenographers taking down their testimony on what they saw. And all of that would be packaged with the film rolls, the cartridges, the cassettes, everything was downloaded from the equipment that we'd put aboard. And that would be packed in a metal box and chained to an officer's wrist and flown to Washington that night. So I never got to see any of that because there was no way for me to read it, the tapes, no way for me to develop pictures in time. They didn't want me to do it anyway. I was forbidden to do anything but debrief the crews and sign the reports and send them to Washington. So I know that we sent some interesting cases forward. I've never heard of those cases since then. One of the cases, for instance, involved a 200-foot diameter disc, estimated, sitting on the ice pack ahead of an approaching B-29. And as the B-29 got close enough to get a pretty good look at it, it jumped into the air and flew away. Now, this 200-foot diameter ship left the ground, leaving nothing behind, no ground equipment, not even an oil slick on the ground. When we'd launch a B-29 for those missions, we had a sea of equipment around the B-29, bigger than the B-29 ever was, left behind when it took off. And so this was a unique. There's no way we could launch anything up there that way, and somebody else.
Yeah, thank you for the donations there. It is towards my telescope, as people know. I have more or less hit the target. I'm just trying to get a bit extra, just in case I can't get it for the price that I want it for. So it's just anything you can do, it's much appreciated. It's going for the telescope, which will then go back into reinvesting in the channel, so I can actually have moons and the sun and those type of live streams as well. It was Claire that got me into it because she's got the telescope. She shouldn't have that telescope because she doesn't know how to use it. So she should sell it me for at least mates rates, £10 or something like that.
Else is doing it all the time, apparently. They also came on one time that was sitting on the water and submerged as it got closer and went under the water and disappeared. Another report we had was of one that emerged from the water and flew away in front of the B-29. We had one report where...
just an update as well. I've spoke to Kaz. We are going to do the interview. But she don't want to do the presentation. I think that's what's knackering her out. There's so much to do. So we're just going to do a normal interview. And also she told me that in October, I think it's the 24th, she's going to Oldham to do a presentation, which is 10 minutes from my house. So I'm going to be there. So if you want to meet UFOs around the world at Kaz's presentation, then you come to Oldham, which is 10 minutes from my house. So yes, I'm looking forward to that. That's in October the 24th.
Estimated 60-foot diameter disc got in the slot between the big wing and the little wing on the right side of the airplane. And they got pictures with all the cameras and the recording equipment aboard the airplane, electrical disturbances, radio frequency disturbance, magnetic disturbance, all of those things in one incident. And they rotated the crews past the window on that side so they could all get a look at it, including the forward crews. And those were sent to Washington. You never heard any of those. So they go someplace, and they're someplace in the files, but we've never heard of them and probably never see them. That was what I was doing in Alaska. Well, I have to believe that there's a cover-up going on. By the way, my superior, Major Moss, who left before I did, about 6 months before I did, and came back to the States, my wife and I had developed a friendly relationship with him where we'd go to dinner with, play cards with him at night and everything. And when we rotated back from the Alaskan theater, we were coming through California, and he had become the base operations officer at McClellan Air Force Base, which was headquarters Western Air Defense Force area. So we're spending the night in his apartment on base at McClellan, and I asked him about whatever happened to all the stuff, the information that we were collecting. He said, well, you know, he said, I didn't believe that it was real at the time, but he said, when I got down here, I found that there's file cabinets full of information. Everything west of the Mississippi is reported through here. So, and he said, it's a lot more highly classified than you think, and there's big offices involved, but...
I don't know if people that don't know much about Wendelle Stevens, they did him dirty. Like, they used the worst thing you can put on somebody and accused him of that. I think he was later cleared of it, or it was obvious that he had not done that. But to shut him up, they'd accused him of the worst, and you can only imagine what that is, right?
It's all clandestine. It's all kept very carefully under control. So he had become convinced. And when I tried to follow the reports I sent to Washington one time when I was there, they told me I didn't have a classification for any of that. Besides, I didn't have any business looking for it. I said, well, I sent some of it. It doesn't make any difference. You're not in the need-to-know loop. We don't know anything about it. But I can tell you what happens to those cases. We had an incident that happened over Tucson in, oh gosh, I think it was about 1975 or 76, where a B-29 bomber was refueling on a tanker over the Catalina Mountains north of Tucson. And while they were doing this, a big disc, about 60 feet in diameter, came in close to the refueling operation as though it was observing it, and both the tanker crew and the B-29 crew watched it. And it stayed there for 12 to 15 minutes. They all rotated the crews again. Everybody got a look at it. They reported this in their coded reporting, and when the airplane landed, the crews were separated and into separate rooms, and headquarters Air Defense Force, Western Air Defense Force area was notified. They had an official Air Force UFO investigation team, and that team was headed by a major. He had about 2 staff sergeants. He had a tech sergeant. I think he even had a master sergeant on the team. He had another officer with him. And when the case was reported, Western Air Defense Force area said, keep them separated, we're on our way over. And they arrived the same day in military aircraft. And they set up interviews the next morning in the base courthouse at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. And they were bringing the crews in one at a time for separate interrogation, and stenographers were taken, like we did in Alaska, taking down their testimony. The siren blew, and they were going to break for lunch.
Okay, I've just got someone messaged me saying, can you see the fire on the moors? So if you're in the Greater Manchester area and you've got access to see the moors, I can't see the moors from my house. I don't think it's that way. Let me know if there's a huge fire. Apparently there's a huge fire that's on the moors. Huge moorland fire breaks out near Greater Manchester's flame seen for miles.
There the siren blows, everybody goes to lunch, you're all back at 1 o'clock. So they stopped their interviews and said, okay, lunch break, and they all started out the door. And when Rudy Pestalozzi went out the door with his team, they see a lot of people standing in the streets all looking up with their mouths open. They looked up, and here's the silvery disc and high station, and another one zipping back and forth over the field like this. By the way, this is the time it's ever been told.
Shit, that's actually right near me. It's Scout Moor, Ramsbottom and Whitworth. I'm just going to have a quick look, see if I can see it.
Publicly. So the one that was flying low over the streets then went up on high station, and the top one came down and did the same thing for about 15 minutes. This went on. The people, when the phenomena left, the people went to lunch, but they brought speakers on the base, started ordering everybody to their sections for a briefing. Meantime, the section commanders and staff officers were told to assemble their people and tell them that this was a military exercise that they had observed, and it was a secret exercise, and it would be worth their job to say anything to anybody about it, even their family at home. And they successfully kept that down. Now, Rudy and his team ran back in and got their equipment. They had 2 4x5 press cameras. They had 2 35mm hand cameras, all of them full of film. They had an 8mm movie camera, and they had rolls of film for that. And they got out in the street and they started shooting pictures and taking movies of what's going on. When they got through, they had quite a bit. They had several rolls of 35mm film, about 6 press packs, 4x5 press packs. They had rolls of movie film. They had the 35mm film, whole roll shot. And they didn't even go to lunch. They closed the photo lab, took all their photo gear over there, and they had the lab people process it out while they watched. They got all their prints, hundreds of prints, because they'd shot 36 shots.
I can't see it. It's at the back, so I can't see it, but it looks massive.
Rolls and several rolls, and the 4x5 press. So the photo lab printed them all up, developed them all out, and printed them all up. Now, the standard routing for this at the time was 8 copies. They made 8 copies of everything, and this report was several hundred pages thick. It was about 4.5 inches thick, with all the photographs in it and all the narrative testimony. So it was made in 8 copies and for normal distribution. I'll try to remember what that was. 1 copy stayed at the home base. Another one went to the rest of the copies, the 7 copies went to the command headquarters, which was headquarters 12th Air Force at Waco at the time. Waco pulled off a copy and kept it and sent a copy to ADC and another copy to Air Materiel Command, and the remaining 4 copies to headquarters, up through intelligence channels to headquarters Air Force. We don't know what they did with all of those. So we heard about this, so we went out there to see what the base would tell us. They told us nothing happened. So we asked if we could see the files. We talked to photo lab people that worked on the project, and at this time I had Rudy Pestalozzi with me, who was there at the time and made the reports. And he had retired and moved to Tucson, and I knew him at George Air Force Base before either of us retired. We met, and he was telling me about this report. I never heard anything about it till Rudy retired and came to Tucson, because nothing got in our newspapers and nothing leaked out. It was carefully stopped. And so he tells me about it, so we went out to the base to look for the base copy that he turned into him. And all there was a telegram in the file with a code number for the telegram and ordering to package the file and send it up the channels. So they sent their package to their big file to headquarters 12th Air Force. When we went to headquarters 12th Air Force to look for it, ours had been packaged with theirs, and the 2 had gone someplace else. And I believe that all those, that up the channels, they were all collected in one place at the top level and put in the files. So there was a magnificent report. Now, this you've heard of Dr. James McDonald from the University of Arizona. He was teaching, he was an atmospheric sciences professor. And he was teaching a class in mathematics that Rudy Pestalozzi, the former intelligence officer from Western Air Defense Force area, was sitting in the class. And something came up about UFOs, and the class snickered, and the professor snickered too. Well, you know, it's foolish. And Rudy felt bad about this because he knows what's going on. So he went up to the professor after class left, and he said, "I noticed you took that lightly. Do you think there is no such thing to this?" Professor says, "Of course, Blue Book explained it all long ago." Rudy said, "My poor man," he said, "would you like to know more about it?" The professor says, "Did you know anything?" And he said, "Yes, I handled some of the reports. If you'd like to know something more, come to my house tonight at 8 o'clock and we'll give you some information." Showing to demonstrate that Blue Book doesn't get all the information. So we gave him this case and 4 other cases that he could go to Wright Field and verify that they went through Wright Field, but they didn't go to Project Blue Book. So he took his summer vacation that year to do it. And he went to Wright Field, and he didn't find them in Project. He found that at that time he found that the project, then it was Project Blue Book files, were only had a low classification and didn't have any real meat in their files. And he went upstairs and he got people to admit that there were other reports, but that he didn't have any classification to see them. So he went to see the commanding general of Air Materiel Command. They called in another general, and he said, "What's happening to all these reports? I know this was sent to you. I have interviewed the man that prepared it. Now, has anybody seen it here, or was it lost?" The general said, "Well, yeah, we saw it, went through." But he said, "Well, where is it now?" He said, "We sent them up, just like, you know, we always do." So he said, "Well, where do you send it?" They said, "Ours went to Washington." So we went, McDonald went to Washington. He was looking for it in the Pentagon. He couldn't score anything there. So at that time, that president was having a presidential breakfast every morning, and he would invite a couple of congressmen and a couple of senators to sit in with his cabinet for the breakfast briefing. And the custom was the president would make his statement to his staff. Then he would invite the staff in order of rank on down to comment on it or offer anything that they wanted to contribute to the meeting that morning. And as a courtesy, he went to each of the congressmen and senators that were visiting. They didn't want to rise and offer anything either, but McDonald, sitting with our representative, stood up and says, "Yes, I have something I'd like to offer. I'd like to ask a question." And the president, I forget who the president was at the time, but we could easily find out. It was about, it was shortly before McDonald died, whenever that was. Anyway, he asked the question, "Where are these reports going? I know they're not going to Project Blue Book. So where are they going?" Everybody looked away like that. They didn't want to answer it. Finally, the president looked around. Nobody wants to answer it. He didn't want to answer it either. He says, "Well, I don't know. We don't have that information. You'll have to brief the people over in the Pentagon, or go see them." So he didn't get his answer. He did cause some consternation in the cabinet. He came back from that feeling like he had scored a point, or picked a sore anyway, as far as the government was concerned. And it was shortly after that, only a few weeks after that, that he was suicided when a pistol was put in his mouth and fired up in his head. That bullet went between the 2 brain halves, severed most of one optic nerve and part of another one, so he was essentially blind. He was in intensive care in St. Mary's Hospital in Tucson.
Imagine surviving that. Oh my God, that'd be my luck. That I'd try and do something. I'd jump off a bridge or something, and then I'd just be able to move my eyes from the rest of my life, like not being able to do anything. That'd be my luck.
Intensive care ward, watched round the clock by nurses. He's in hospital clothes, recovering a garment that ties on the back and has no back in it. Hospital slippers. His clothes have been taken and locked up in a locker. And in the middle of the night, the first
More stories,
night,
Eric's just said.
Recovering.
More stories. He's the guy. I would like to have proof, right? Are you the type of guy that watches a film and goes, "Oh, I'm not watching this. More fucking stories," and just turns it off? Have you never watched a film in your life? Listen, we know the stories. There is evidence to back up some of the claims that he's speaking about, by the way, but you'd have to do your own research for that. This isn't just a standalone thing, or this is everything. That Wendell's worked on this for decades, like 70 odd years in the UFO thing. So don't just go off this. This is just one little part of Wendelle Stevens.
From the gunshot wound, he disappears from the hospital. And they couldn't find him in the hospital, but the next morning they found him in the desert, 4 miles out of town, with another bullet from the left into the left temple, across the head, and he's right-handed. The gun left at the site was his own, the doctor's own gun, Dr. McDonald's own gun. But that gun had to come from a shoebox on the second shelf of a closet, his clothes closet in his bedroom, where his wife was sleeping behind a locked door. The house door was locked, and he's in hospital clothes, and he's gone from St. Mary's Hospital to his home, probably 4 or 5 miles, at night in the dark in hospital clothes and hospital slippers, and successfully got in a locked door, into a locked bedroom, got the gun, got back out again, and went 4 miles out in the desert. Tell me that's suicide, but that's how he was reported. That's how it was classified. And his insurance was paid off, and his family told it was a suicide. So, is it a suicide, or was he suicided twice? Not once, but twice. People often ask me after a presentation, they say, well, where are they? And where do they come from, and what are they doing here? And the answer is not a simple answer. It is not a simple they, and it's not a simple activity. And I have investigated over 100 cases in great detail where the aliens came back over and over to the same contactee and watched the changes in his life and the developments as they progressed, and been able to measure and verify them. And in that 100 and some cases, I'll say, let's round it to 100, I have only found 2 cases that might be coming from the same place doing the same thing, and that was reticulum. The Betty and Barney Hill had an indication that after Marjorie Fisher's examination of the evidence, that the astronomical configuration that she saw on the screen might have included reticulum, Zeta 1 and Zeta 2 of reticulum. The aliens didn't tell her where they came from, because they said, if you don't know where your sun is, what good will it do us to show you where we come from? So Marjorie Fish concluded that those came from reticulum, and they may have, because their appearance was very much like the ones that were contacting William Herman in North Charleston, South Carolina. Those little beings that are typically called grays today, and pretty much match the ones that were described by Betty Barney Hill, told him that they came, specifically, that they came from a planet they call, from a planet that orbits one of twin suns that they call reticulum. And when we look at the constellation Reticulum, which means net, the net, we see 2 suns, big bright suns, together. And they told Herman, who is not an astronomer at all, that the 2 suns are twin suns that run parallel in sidereal space, which meant nothing to Bill Herman. So when I reported that to the astronomers at Kate Biggs, I laughed and says, there's no such thing as twin suns. In astronomy, there's no, every time there's 2 stars close together, they're binary. They become binary. He says that just the astrophysics makes them binary. So I said, well, watch these 2 and tell me if you can find out whether they're really twin suns running parallel in sidereal space, or if they're really binary. If they're binary, they must have a long period. So that was 15 years ago, and just recently one of the astronomers called me and said, you know, those 2 suns in reticulum do seem to be parallel suns, running parallel in sidereal space. They do not appear to be binaries, and they're changing the catalog to show this. So those reticulans told Bill Herman that they came from one of them, and that in their same sun system there was another planet that had evolved beings traveling in space. We've never met them. So that was a kind of a confirmation, but these were different. They're not humans like the Pleiadians. These are...
Let me make this screen bigger. Let me use this one. It's better, isn't it?
The other species. Now, there's an interesting study that was done in 1979. Both MUFON in the United States and CUFOR, an equivalent in Canada, took all the known cases and plotted them, and looked for comparisons. And they ran tables and graphs and charts, and they found, as a result of the study, it lasted months, that working from known data, they found that about 1/3 of the visitors to this planet were humans just like us. Different morphology, different appearances and so forth. Bigger ears, smaller ears, change in the mouth, bigger eyes, less hair, no hair at all on the body, but human creatures, placental human creatures like us, animals. Second category, third. The first third was humans. The second third was what we commonly call grays today, and the reticulans would fit in that category. There are a lot of grays. There's only one gray species that comes from reticulum, and that's often confused. But the second category being those gray types, they are non-placental creatures. You saw one on the autopsy table in the Santilli film. They don't have any gastrointestinal system. They don't have any sex organs. They are a different class of being altogether. We don't even know for sure whether they're animal or not. And they didn't have any sex organs, distinguishable sex organs, so we don't know what sex they are. And then the third class is a catch-all category. Third is a catch-all category that includes everything else, the tentacled species, the fuzzy blobs, hairy balls, and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of different varieties, but there's a great, now this pretty much confirms the statements that the other statement I made earlier, that the nature of contact with this planet is infinitely varied. None of the species are the same. None of the humans are exactly alike. None of the grays are exactly alike, and all of the exotic different species are all different from each other. So that would also tend to confirm the fact that they all come from different planets, from different sources, and they have different technologies and doing different things. Yet they're intelligent enough to produce vehicles and be traveling in space. And that ought to be interesting. The possibilities are so vast. What their objectives are, I would have to believe from what I see that each one has his own game, that there is no common approach to the Earth species, that we're just another species that is being examined by different species because we are different from them in some degree. The humans are examining us because we're different humans. The other species because we're different creatures. And I don't see any peculiar pattern of contact here myself, because it appears that we're accidentally discovered by, there doesn't seem to be any program of contact to this planet except by a given species from a given planet at a given time. And there doesn't seem to be any organized relationship involving this planet that would indicate a major project of some kind by somebody. So I've got to believe that our planet, our sun even, is off in the boonies. It's not a part of a regular traffic system. We don't have regular visitors. The ones that find us are happenstance, and they appear here occasionally when they discover what appears to be intelligent life on this planet. And I find evidence in the way that develops that many of the alien visitors only encounter other alien visitors here. That space is so vast and the cosmos is so vast.
There's 90 people watching. This is Wendelle Stevens. If you don't know who he is, he's getting to the point where he starts speaking about how aliens eat and how they poo and stuff like that, and because they don't have the same digestive system as us and stuff like that. And if you're new to the channel, please think about dropping a little subscription. It really does help.
Fast that they just don't encounter each other until they're both in the same place at the same time doing something related. So the reticulans met the Pleiadians here, and they didn't know about them before that because there was no traffic with them. I believe that there is an ongoing program with at least one race, and possibly more. And I got to tell you about a friend of mine, I won't give you his name, who was an engineer at Area 51. And if I gave you any more about that, he'd be identifiable. But his job was an important job, and he spent a whole career there, retired from his job there. In about the 1960s, apparently our government made contact with an alien extraterrestrial visitor where they negotiated an arrangement to provide a surface facility for the aliens to operate from in exchange for some technology. And that's scuttlebutt all over the area, but there is some substance in fact. So when the agreement was reached, the alien society laid some requirements on our government. They said we would have to provide a suitable habitat for the beings that they would send here from their society. And they gave us some very specific instructions for it.
So this is the part now where he speaks about the aliens and how they eat and stuff like that.
The laboratory facility had to have 2 nozzles in the shower, one for water and one for enzymes. And they would bring enzymes from their home planet to be put in a tank to be dispensed through the second nozzle. The enzymes were lathed over the body first and rubbed in. They stand there for a time, and then they rinse off with water, and the water and the enzymes are collected at the bottom, and the enzymes are filtered out, put back in the tank, and the water is flushed away. That was one of the requirements. Another was a food requirement. They don't eat elementation such as ours. They brought elementation from their home planet that we had to learn to culture here in Area 51 to provide a food source for their diet. Our government was charged with the responsibility to produce the food from their products continually for elementation.
So just for people, I don't know if you mentioned, I don't think you mentioned the rest of it. So if you remember the treaty that was made, the Greedy Treaty, and then they were supposed to be able to take human beings and stuff like that as long as they told MJ12. The abduction rates went up. The list never got handed to MJ12. I can't prove this, but this is the story that goes around, right? And the cattle mutilations went up. Now, the reason the cattle mutilations went up is because the cows have the same enzymes in their tongue as a human does. So they were taking humans for food source, and they were taking cows and stuff for food source. And I think what he's referring to now is they had to make a food source for these beings, and that could be abductions, that's part of this trafficking operation that goes on to get the food sources for all these beings and stuff like that as well. So I think that's connected to it.
For the guest visitors. Now, those guest visitors arrived in an operational vehicle that they still keep operation of. They can go and come. They fly in and out of their habitat facility at will. They're not restrained in any way. But my engineer friend was one of the several engineers that were assigned to work with the extraterrestrials to try to bridge the gap between their technology and ours. And in 20 years of research trying to do so, they never succeeded in closing the gap. Were never able to convert that technology to ours. And the reason given by the aliens themselves is because in order to operate their equipment, they have to impart a certain mental input. And
now that's interesting that he's said the mental input, because then Ross Coulthard not long ago and all the sky watchers now are talking about it's consciousness that flies these crafts. Jake Barber says they take these children, the psionic abilities to be able to control these crafts and stuff like that, and apparently Ross Coulthard is going to expose a lot of this in the next coming months and stuff like that. He said it's time to tell that story, which is going to involve some of these trafficked children. So it's interesting this has been spoken about then, consciousness. Listening to it then, you think that's insane. Listening to it now, you're thinking it's making sense. This is why you got to sit on a lot of information. So if you've researched for a long time, this stuff you might have dismissed in the past. I dismissed a lot of this in the past, I'll be honest with you. And then now you're thinking, holy shit, I knew about this, I just dismissed it.
And we have never learned to impart the input that's necessary to make the machines work. So their equipment responds to mind, to thought, and we have never learned to impart the proper thought to make any of it work. There is no way that we can bridge the gap with a wire from this point to that point, from theirs to ours, and make it work. There's no such wire. And that's interesting because those aliens I think one is very ill now and about to die, but they've been there since the 60s. That's 35 years. And we've been trying to solve the problem all that time and haven't succeeded. That's one entity that I know about. There were 2 of them involved, 2 aliens involved, 1 craft. There may be others that I don't know about. That one I am quite sure is legitimate and real. The last I heard is one of those alien beings. We don't know whether they're males or females either because they don't have any sex organs. But they have not reproduced out there. They do go and come as they please, and sometimes they're seen by others outside or even in Area 51. They're not detained, but it's an interesting experiment because there may be other programs going on that are not as beneficent. Okay, my friend.
Do they use a fork? I don't know. I'd like to know that as well. we have to rethink all the conspiracy theories now. I don't think we have to rethink them. I think we just have to let them play out. A lot of them are coming true. A lot of them are all seen to be being spoken about now. We've got the children being taken, which was a conspiracy. We've got the adrenochrome, which was a conspiracy. Psionics is totally new. You know, psionics was very rarely spoken about in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. You'll see one or two little things on it, which you'll find on Bibliotheca Pleiades, like from late 90s. You didn't really hear about it. You hear consciousness, but you wouldn't hear the word psionics. This is a new thing that's coming out. So maybe we are getting some form of disclosure, slow disclosure on this.
And from Area 51 told me an interesting story about an event that happened out there. We had another crash come down about 8 miles north by northwest of Kingman, Arizona, at the old Kingman Air Base, northwest of Kingman Air Base. And that one was successfully recovered by teams from Area 51 using Area 51 equipment. There were 4 living aliens in that. All 4 of them were evacuated to Los Alamos, where they had already prepared a habitat for such events. And when they recovered, when the Area 51 team got the ship back to Area 51, it was beeping the whole time it was on the ground. When they got back to Area 51, it was still beeping. They couldn't figure out how to stop the beeping. And after a week of the irritating beeping that they just couldn't see.
Well, you look at a lot of the films that have come out, E.T., Flight of the Navigator, even Close Encounters, they all involve children. Like Flight of the Navigator, the child held all the information in his brain. Makes sense when if they was leaking it in that. You got E.T.'s connection, he could feel everything this alien was. When this alien was dying, he was feeling it. And when he was pissed in school. Do you remember the things? That there's been a connection with the children in Hollywood movies over the decades.
Seemed to turn off. Somebody says, well, why don't we get the occupants to come back and turn it off?
And I think Stranger Things is loosely based on MK Ultra and stuff like that, and all the montage stuff. And let's face it, if this is true, you do have to slowly bring this out, because they are going to have to tell some horrible truths that these children had their fucking brains fried, as someone said in the comments, which is true. Ramping up the things to get these psionic abilities, they've got to put them in fight or flight mode. They've got to terrify them, like really badly terrify them, to get to harbour this ability. It must be fucking horrendous.
So they drove the occupants back from Los Alamos in a carryall to Area 51, indicated by sign language what they wanted them to do. They acknowledged, and they said they'd have to go aboard. They didn't want to let them go aboard. They thought they'd take the ship off and fly away. But they finally consented. That's the only way they're going to stop it. They sent a guard in with them, and the guard came out vomiting in just a few seconds. And the crew is in there together alone. Craft didn't start up and fly.
I'll tell you what I think, right, and I'm sorry for interrupting. I will upload the full thing for people to watch and stuff like that. I think we are born with our natural abilities, because a lot of my experiences come at a very young age that I can't explain, and a lot of these children get taken before the age of 7 years old, because there's something that happens, your brain flips, sort of, and like, you're not the same, I'm 40, I'm not the same person I was when I was 30, 20, 80, and all that, all the way down. I'm definitely not the same person I was when I was 7, and I think what we are in now is a program that has been created for us. The school, the life we're living, it's a program for us, like a slave program for us to be in. So, and they can dip in and take these children before they get into that program. And the people that are in it, like us poor fuckers, we've got no chance unless we can. These people that can meditate, they can leave the body, and they're having these experiences. But then they're trying to portray that to me and say, listen, this is, and I'm struggling with it, because like, you can't prove to someone that you can leave your body, can you? You can't prove to someone that you've seen something when you've taken DMT. You can't prove these things. It really pisses me off. I 100% believe there's something, but I totally get why the skeptics go, there's no evidence. I totally get it. You've got to come to your own truth in this. You've got to be confident in your research. You've got to be confident that all these people aren't fucking brain dead and they're just making it. Because, come on, there's too many people talking about things, and it's a pattern to it. But there's no evidence to it, and that's the problem. There is no evidence to it, and it is the worst fucking thing ever. When someone says to me in an argument, it's like, where's the evidence? It's like, you've got to find your own evidence. You've got whatever. You look at something, and I could give you 27 years of research that I've done, give it to you, you research it, you might come back and say, I don't believe any of it, it's bullshit. It's just, you might look at it a total different way to me. And we all see it in different ways. It's just a nightmare, this topic, and I totally get why skeptics have an easy... They make more money taking the piss out of this topic and ridiculing it 100%. I see it on X all the time.
Highway, probably couldn't anyway. They turned the sound off and came back to the door. They carried all backed up, and they loaded them, took them back to Los Alamos. Now, Los Alamos is involved, and that has been involved all along. So I'll tell you another story. My friend, the engineer, after 20 years of trying to solve the problem of bridging the gap between the technologies, is invited in 1968. Well, it wasn't 20 years by then. He was invited to Los Alamos for a project review conference. And they had about 18 scientists that all had been working on the project, various stages of the project, gathered around a big oval table in the Los Alamos headquarters with Edward Teller, the head of the Atomic Energy Commission, sitting at the head of the table. One of the aliens on the opposite side of the table from my engineering friend put in a white shirt and slacks so he would look less alien, but he still had his alien bigger head, bigger eyes, black eyes. And he was sitting in the conference, and the only people that he could understand everybody else because he was telepathic. And the only way he could communicate, though, was the signs that he had developed with my engineer friend to answer the question. But here's a man, an alien from another planet, sitting in a conference in 1968 in Los Alamos headquarters on the progress of learning how to bridge the gap between the alien technology and ours, which we have never succeeded in doing. Is a profound case that was thrown away when it came out. Everything was filed in the round file. None of the clubs had possessed it, so they didn't investigate it. They didn't do anything about it. They all knocked it. The government raised their usual programs of disinformation against it. The guy didn't say that I don't need this. I have my own truth. I don't need to try to explain to people that I have to educate first before I can even tell them anything about it. To hell with it. So he wouldn't talk to anybody. He pulled in his horns, and his case continued. His contacts continued. They went on for a long time. He said he'd been taken to the moon twice since then by them and twice to their home planet. But he's not going to write anything on his visits to the home planet because they asked him not to.
104 people in. There's a lot of men in here tonight, I think, that want to get away from the missus for the night. It's Monday night. I didn't expect that many people in, to be fair.
We came back from Switzerland.
No offense to the women. All the women in here, brilliant.
Had 8 stages of metal samples. They told us that their metal was synthesized from space, and that they in the mothership they collected space, primordial space, and they condensed it step by step until it was, and they stored it in matter banks. From that they could synthesize anything they need. So they would produce whatever they wanted from their synthesis banks. Now, the metals that they made were the result of their synthesis programs. So they offered to bring us 3 stages of metal for us to examine. And of the 3 stages, one was a metal in a lower primary state before it was really specific. It was dark, almost amorphous. And they brought us another stage that was a little brighter, and then a stage that was quite bright, and then a stage that was bright goldish. And they told us each of these represented a successive stage of refinement to the useful form of metal that they used in their ships. We found that all of the metals involved, or all of the chemical metals involved, were highly electric. So we worried about they're all going to be soft. However, they said that their ships were protected by a force field. So the force field you would require high electrical conductivity to get good results for the force field. So that's maybe the result, maybe why they resorted to that kind of metal. Anyway, we got back, and I took my specimens to the University of Arizona to the metal.
Who did this guy's teeth? This is the 90s. Like, this is top tier turkey teeth back then.
Department there, headed by Dr. Walter W. Walker. And he looked at him and he said, oh, these are interesting. He's also a member of APRO. He says, these are really interesting. I'd like to take a look at them. So he studied them a bit. When I went down to see him a couple days later,
Please hit that thumbs
what
up,
did you
folks. It
find?
really
Well,
does
he
help
said,
the live.
we're going to have to take them to some other more advanced equipment than I've got here. He said, roughly, they're one 1/3 silver, 1/3 copper, 1/3 gold. But he said there's trace elements in there also. He said, however, you can't quote me. He said, I won't give you any writing on this. Now, you can't take a picture of the laboratory that did it. Don't mention my lab and all that sort of thing. So not going to do us a damn bit of good. So I said, why not? He said, well, he said, this is an exotic subject. It's our business is not studying metal samples from a UFO. He said, take it elsewhere. He said, I'd recommend you get somebody that has some high-tech electronic scanning equipment. So we found a shop that had a laboratory that had that. And they gave us a little bit more information. They said that it's a strange metal. They said that it's a synthesis, that the metal shows that it is not synthesized from discrete metals mixed together or poured together. They said that on the electron scanning microscope, we get sharp spikes and a normal flow of spikes.
Do you know what? Set the chat up over this side because he's over there and he keeps fucking putting his head in the chat. Fucking idiot.
Down to where very low ones. They said this tells us that the metal is crossing has all of the metals in it, but larger quantities of some. So they said we can't give you a report on this, so we're not in that kind of business. So then we finally found Marcel Vogel out at IBM, who was the inventor of the electronic data transfer. He's the one that invented magnetic tape and magnetic discs for computers. We took the metal to him, and he was very interested in it. He took it to the IBM laboratories to study it, and he come back with it. He studied for a week before he'd even talked to us, and then we were out there to see him, and he said it's really a unique substance. He says, I agree that it's nothing we can make on this planet. He said first of all, he said it's not been in a molten state. He said this is formed by a cold fusion process in a vacuum. He said, we have a cold fusion process, electrolytic, but he said it's not in a vacuum. He said it's never been heated, there's no bubbles in it, and there's no ash. He said, so the assembly of this metal is rather unique. He said, when I turned a high intensity quartz beam on it, it began to dematerialize before my eyes, so I had to turn it off quick to keep from losing it. He said the crystal stacking in the metal, metal is made up of crystals, metal crystals. He said the crystal stacking in the metal is such that it's highly conductive. He says it's more conductive than any of those metals by themselves. And he said, I find...
That's true. If you get close to it in science, they go, here, have you seen this out this window here? And next minute, oh shit, that was a nasty accident, wasn't it?
Trace elements of rhenium and thulium in them. He says those are unstable elements. By themselves, they quickly decay into something else, but they're stable in this alloy that you brought me. He said, so these trace elements may be doing something. He says, we make super magnets by putting trace earths, rare earths in metal. And he says we get magnets that are 20,000 times stronger than ordinary magnets. He says these may be doing something like that, but we don't know. We don't have any laboratory work on it. He says it is highly electrical. He says it's highly conductive, all of it. But he said, yeah, it's mostly, roughly, it's copper, silver, and gold again. He gave us a television report, which is in a document we called the metal samples, that he would only do on video in his own laboratory. And he wouldn't give us anything on IBM stationery. He wouldn't give us anything on his own stationery. He says, I'm not afraid of the peer pressure, but because, as he said, I am the peer. But he said, this is not healthy for the company I work for. They don't like me doing this. So he said, I'll give you the television report as a private citizen. You can't show that I work for my bosses or anything else, and you may do what you want with it. So we put it in what we called, it was a video presentation, about 30 minutes of the metal samples. Oh yes, my interest was piqued in what was happening in Alaska, and they wouldn't let me have anything there, so I began. So they wouldn't let me take anything home. They wouldn't let me learn anything what was happening in Alaska except what I was getting out of the interrogations. They wouldn't let me talk to anybody about it. Those were all highly classified. So I began watching the newspapers for any newspaper reports. I started buying magazines that had a UFO article in the magazine and collecting these, and from those I would get names and addresses. And I often called the people who wrote the articles to get them. Then I'd go interview those people myself, and if they took pictures, I'd try to get a copy of the picture, and frequently did. And then I began trading the pictures that I already had with other people that had pictures to get more pictures, and eventually built a library of pictures, probably the largest in private hands in the world. Is over 4,000 pictures of real UFOs. Now, if I can collect that many alone as a single individual working by myself, how many pictures do you think the government has got when every government employee is a potential investigator? Every agent on trained investigator, all collecting and contributing to the government file. They must have hangars full of pictures. At a UFO, International UFO conference in Acapulco, just like this. And I had gone down with Jim Lorenzen, who was the head of APRO, the first UFO civilian or civilian UFO research organization in the world, organized right here in Tucson. We flew down to Acapulco. Hynek had been invited to speak there. And we had dinner with Hynek the first night because he and Jim Lorenzen knew each other. And I found him to be an affable man. He didn't say much because he had learned not to commit himself on a position over the swamp gas and several other things that already happened by then. So when I came back from Switzerland with the photographs and the information that I was collecting in the Swiss case, I released some of the information in a meeting like this in Oakland, California one time. It was immediately attacked by everybody because they didn't have it, including all the clubs, including my own club in Tucson, the APRO. They said that I stole their case. But I went there to find out about it myself for the first time. Anyway, I got a call a couple of years into the investigation of the case from a woman in Tucson, in Phoenix, asking me if I could come to Tucson and tell her about the Pleiades case. And I said, yeah, I can, but that's a little inconvenient. Is it important? She says, I think it's important. I think you'll find it important. So I agreed, and I drove up to Phoenix, and I met her in the afternoon. She said, come about supper time, we'll have a bite to eat. I got there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I rang her doorbell, and she opened the door, and she said, there's somebody here I want you to meet. And she opened the door a little further, and there's Hynek standing there, and he greeted me. He said, hello. He said, come on in. And I went in, and he said, now I would like you to tell me something about this Pleiades case you're investigating. But he said, I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm not going to answer any questions. He said, I don't want to be committed in any way on this, but I'd like you to tell me what you know. So I showed him some of the pictures and told him something about the case, and he listened patiently, and we got through. He just thanked me, and I picked up my stuff and left. He never did really attack the Pleiades case, but everybody else all did because they weren't included in it. MUFON attacked me because we didn't include them in the investigation. Now, there's a reason why we didn't. I've never been a member of any UFO organization because they're always backbiting each other. So I tried to stay out of that, but I was closely associated with APRO because I knew Coral and Jim very well, and I used to help them put out their bulletin. I helped them file material in the office. I helped them in many ways because I was retired and had time to do it. Helped them prepare their newsletter. But they kind of turned against me when I came back with the Pleiades case and wouldn't turn it over to them. Now, the reason I didn't turn it over to them is none of these clubs had any money to investigate anything. They publish a little bulletin, their subscriptions to the bulletin barely paid for it, but they had no fund to send anybody anywhere to investigate anything. So I had to go on my own time and my own money, and I figured, if that's the case, why should I try to give it all to them? And it was going to take some serious research of the data that I was bringing. I had metal samples, I had plastic samples, I had a lot of things to be tested. And again, they had no money to do any of this. All of this is going to require money for testing. So I involved some other people with me to help finance some of the work that we were doing. So it was for this reason that most of the clubs now, the APRO began to publish attacks on the case in their own APRO journal, which I was helping them write. and they criticized the Swiss farmers.
Okay, now speaking of Scottish people, Wiggy's just jumped in another Scottish place. There's Scottish people in here tonight. Am I just like feeding the Scottish people?
saying that he was a fraud and a fake, and that he might even be fooling some of our investigators and a few things like that. So I quit coordinating information with them. I just decided I don't need all the problem. And they reached the stage where they even took my key away and wouldn't let me in the office anymore. I went on my own money. I never would have gone back a second time on my own money or anybody's money if I had ever had any reason to suspect fraud or funny business in the case. When I got there, I found the most sincere, honest guy I ever saw. He looked you straight in the eye when he talked to you, looked right into your soul, and he didn't look away. When I asked him questions about making models and things like that, he showed me the models. He said,
There were two types of Scottish people. There are the ones that sound really sexy with their Scottish accent, and then there are the ones that sound like me after 10 pints of cider. And I think the people in here tonight are the ones like me after 10 pints of cider.
I can't make him only have one arm. I can't even cover anything. But he said, I do get models. His first one was from a 12-year-old neighbor boy in a shop class at school. He turned one out on a lathe, waxed it out, and brought it to him. He had it on his desk. He showed that one to me. He says, others brought me other models. He said, they're models, but they're not the real thing. He says, models are easy to tell. So anyway, the case had a lot going for it. He had the best photographs I'd ever seen. And that's usually suspect. If the pictures are good, they're probably too good. But these stood all the testing that we could give them. And even over, more than 20 years of testing now, we haven't been able to find any way that they could have been faked. They're not montages, they're not double images, none of the regular things. Now we learned, in the process of testing these things, we learned a lot. We learned that we can take a still two-dimensional photograph, and by examining the photograph with computers and measuring pixels and everything else, we can find out if any object in the picture is moving, which direction it's moving, and about how fast by counting the pixels on the edges. We found that we can estimate distance from the camera with respect to other objects in the picture by 6 different methods. One of them is haze factor, gray factor, color saturation, depth of field, well, counting pixels is a good example. Also, that has to do with the dispersion of light over distance. The less sharp the field is, the further the light has traveled. So when we apply all 6 of those methods and find that the result is roughly within 10% of each other, and when we measured one of the pictures, for example, and found that the craft was hovering over a log pile 120 yards away, then knowing the geometry of the lens, we just simple mathematics, you can multiply it out and find that if that's 20 yards from the lens and it's that size in the image frame, then it's got to be 20 feet in diameter. And the witness was telling us it was about 7 meters in diameter, which is about 21 feet. So all of our tests came out like that. There are other tests for color shading, reflection of light from different sources around it. If it's a small model, it reflects it differently from a large object. And so there were people that come along and said, oh, he made them with models. We can make pictures just like that with models in 10 minutes. So there's a fellow, Michael Horn, that has taken the debunkers on out there in California, and he offered a lot of money for anybody that could duplicate just one picture. After a year with no duplications, he offered to, he said, well, you didn't do it with everything open. You had a freehand to do it any way you could, all the technicians you want, all the guys you want, in a laboratory if you like, and everything else. He said, now I'd like to narrow it down a little bit. He said the man had a broken camera. He couldn't change the focus. His focus was jammed just a little bit short of infinity, about a 16th of an inch maybe, short of the infinity focus on his camera. It had been dropped and the ring was bent and it was jammed. The same action broke the mirror loose beside the lens viewer, so he couldn't look through the camera anymore, and he had to shoot all of his pictures from the hip, so to speak. So then,
please make sure as well before you leave to click the notification bell so you get notified if I go live and stuff like that. That does help, because I go live quite regular. So people, if you're new in here, there's 90 odd years. If you're new, I do regular lives. If you don't enjoy this one, there's a good chance you'll enjoy the next one or the one after that. I always hit the spot for someone at some stage with your curiosity in this topic. We go down the demon, the angels, all that kind of route, and the dark side as well. And if you've not watched Fall the Cabal, that part one's getting some decent views. I know there's some muted sections in that Fall the Cabal. It's because of the music. I couldn't cut it. I couldn't erase the song. I had to trim out that section. So I get there's like 7 minutes out of the entire thing which is muted. It does play the majority of it though.
He said
the part two, I don't think there's anything that's muted on it. I trimmed out it. I learnt my lesson from part one, so there's no muting in part two. So if you watch part one, please make sure to watch part two.
And you should do it with all those settings. You should be stuck with the infinity setting, fixed focus, no lens. Another one, he shot everything at 125th of a second with his broken camera. All of it was shot on ASA 100 slide transparency film. He said, "Now I'd like to limit you to some of those." He didn't get anything for another year, and he said, "Well, you didn't do it that way. Now let's do it with one arm." This man has only one arm besides his broken camera. Still no response, so he's ordered the people that offered money for anybody that could come up with a picture. He told them they ought to pay up, because Billy will make another one for him. I am absolutely convinced. I found other eyewitnesses. I didn't go around the neighborhood knocking doors wherever these things happen. And I found other witnesses that didn't know anything about Billy Meier, and he didn't know anything about them, that had seen something descend into the woods nearby and rise from the woods 20 minutes later at the same time that Billy was having a contact. I found a man that was a computer programmer that lived on a hill overlooking one of the sites, and he had come home from work one day, saw the object slowly descending into the clearing behind the trees, landed behind the trees. He called his wife out. They both stood there and watched for 25 or 30 minutes until it rose in the air and flew away. They never heard of Billy Meier, and Meier never heard of them, but we found them just by knocking doors in the neighborhoods looking for anybody that had ever seen anything strange out there. And we found a number of them. Oh, I'm absolutely convinced that it's real. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. And I went back 12 or 13 times. I lived in the household with the man and his family for 81 days overall, collectively. And I knew all of them very well. And I was there one day when I'd been there for 4 or 5 days already, living in the household with them, sleeping in one of the rooms in their bedrooms in their house. When he got up one morning, it'd been raining all the day before and the night before, and he got up and it was wet and soggy outside, and he had a cold, he thought he was coming down with the flu. He was a heavy smoker and he didn't light a cigarette. He drank a lot of coffee, he didn't take coffee. He walked around a little bit, went and laid.
Since I seem to have a lot of Scottish followers, I will do a Scottish video for you. There's been a lot of activity in Scotland. A lot of it doesn't get covered, so I will do a video for you.
Down on a sofa in the living room in front of the television set. Stayed there all day long. He didn't feel like getting up. He hadn't drunk any water. They brought him water and he didn't drink it. He didn't drink coffee, he didn't smoke. And by about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I hear him, I'm watching the television with my back to him, and I heard a movement. And I looked around and he's down there like this, motioning for me to come over. So I went over there and bent down to see what he had. He said, "Get Elsie." So I went to get Elsie. She was one of the women in the household there. And she came and did the same thing, and he told her something, and she went to get his wife, and between the two of them, they picked him up and walked him down the hallway to his bedroom.
While he's chatting as well, I'm not going to be live tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm going live Thursday night. Give me some ideas what you'd like me to cover as a watch along in a live. Just give me ideas.
They put him in a tub because for every contact he had, he changed all of his clothes from the inside out, wearing all fresh clothes, having taken a bath if he had time just before leaving. So they left his underclothes in there, and his wife came out with a shirt and jeans, which he always wore. And she put up the ironing board and started ironing those, and Elsie brought the boots out and started washing those, scrubbing them up, then polished them and set them aside. Then he came walking out. His wife took the shirt and pants in. He came walking out with the shirt and pants on, and she took the empty sleeve and pinned it up for him. And Elsie had laid out his pistol, gun, and a walkie-talkie, and he sat down at the table, and he took the pistol out of the holster, opened the barrel, dumped the cartridges out, looked down the barrel at both and put them all back in, put it back together, put it in the holster, strapped it on. Then he took the walkie-talkie, opened it up, dumped the batteries out, put fresh batteries in it. No matter how bad the other batteries were, I thought this might be a waste of equipment. Maybe it will work, but he didn't want to take any chances on it not working. It had.
Or what I might do, because there's a lot of Scottish people, I might just get pissed on a live, do it on StreamYard, invite people up, get multiple guests up, and we'll just get pissed, have a laugh, and talk about the UFO topic. We could do that instead if you wanted to do something a bit random. Get yourself on screen and just have a bit of fun.
Problems already with it, for lack of that. So they had learned how to prepare for the meeting. So now he's all ready to go, and he's dressed, and it's about 6 o'clock in the evening. This all started about 5:30. Well, it's probably closer to 6:30. The men had come in from work, had seen what was going on, went and washed up and came back, sat down at the table. The women had served them supper, and Billy and his wife and Elsie are standing at the end of the table by the stove, cook stove. Over the stove was a clock with a round face with big numbers on it. And I'm on the far end of the kitchen pouring a cup of coffee. When he raised his hand, a little signal like that, he got the final word to go telepathically and started out the door. I set my coffee cup down so hard I spilled it, ran around the table, following him out. I want to see him go this time. So I've never been able to catch him this close to a departure. And I got out the kitchen door, which went down 2 steps to the ground, and a lean-to shed that went to the end of the house with a spring-loaded door that opened inward. So I got on the ground out there in time to see his heels going through the end door, and I ran about 8 or 9 steps to it, jerked it open. I don't want to miss anything, and there out in the wet ground in the mud was 1, 2, 3 steps like that, no 4th step. And so I looked all around. There's no noise, no lights. It's quiet. The rain is still falling. And I thought, gee, and I missed it. And so I stayed out there in the rain until I got soaking wet. And I went back in to change clothes, and I put dry clothes on, and somebody gave me a raincoat. And I was going back out I didn't want to miss anything. I'm going to be there when he comes back. And as I came down the stairs, I saw in the living room the Germans are standing in front of the television set watching it. So I went over and looked over their shoulder to see what they're watching, and there was a black screen with a white cross that said in German, "The Pope has died." So I said, how did he die? And they said, we don't know. The program just stopped, and this came on the screen. I watched for maybe 30 seconds or more, but I don't want to miss what's going on outside. So I went back outside in the rain to wait for Billy to come back. And I was out there about 15 or 20 more minutes when a telephone rang, and somebody answered it upstairs, and they raised the window and said, he's down over at Elg, and you can go with Jacobus and his wife to pick him up. Well, Elg was on the other side of the mountain. His walkie-talkie is line of sight, so he had to use the telephone to call home. He walked from wherever they let him out, probably right in front of a guest house. When we got in a black Volkswagen, splish and splash through puddles, rain splashing all over the windshield and over the top of the car, trying to get to him. And he had gone out in the rain, and now we're going to pick him up, still in the rain, someplace else. He's standing under one of those little 3-board roofs over a 3-step landing on the side of a guest house, which is closed for the night. And he's not wet. Doesn't have any raindrops on his jacket. His hair is dry. His shoes only had a little bit of mud around the soles, nothing on the top. You know, if you walk on a muddy street, you get mud on the top and everything everywhere. He didn't have any of that. So
Dolores Cannon I really want to do, but I'd have to find one that's not copyrighted. As I said the other night, they won't allow it, I don't think, because it's a 24-hour live stream on her channel where they go through, because she's passed away and someone's obviously taken control of her channel. I don't know if they'd allow watch-alongs, and I've had a look, and I don't see anybody covering it, which is odd, which tells me people have covered it and it's had the videos taken down. Because it's the same channel that's got Dolores Cannon's stuff. I'll have a look, though. Maybe I can do one that's clips and get away with it that way. But it's definitely one of those, when you cover it, they'll just copyright you for it.
He got in the car, and trying to make conversation, he just looked forward. He didn't want to talk, and I tried several times. I just gave up and leaned back. We got back to the house. Took us about 15 minutes to go each direction, and they went inside, and he walked into the living room. The Germans followed him in there, closed the door. So I knew that they were going to get whatever information you wanted to tell.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll reach out to that channel. I'll comment, see if I can get a comment in the live or whatever, and just ask, can I do one watch along with one of your videos? See if she'll allow me to do that. I don't. She's got loads of subscribers, like 620,000. So it's not like she doesn't need. It's not like she needs the followers. But yeah, I'll ask the permission. Then maybe she'll allow it.
Tell them that I probably wasn't invited at that stage. I waited a couple hours. Never did open up, so I went up and went to bed. The next morning, I came down early, and one of the girls came down shortly, just a few minutes after I was going to make me some coffee. Came down, and I said, "What time did the meeting break up last night?" She said, "Oh, not last night." I said, "Well, when did it break up?" She said, "About 6 o'clock this morning." I said, "Oh, God, he'd be sleeping on late, huh?" She said, "Well, he'll be up soon." So about 9 o'clock, he got up and came out, and he just nodded a greeting to me at the table. I was sitting there drinking a cup of coffee. They brought him one. He sat down for a minute, then he looked at me and jerked his head like that for me to follow him, and we got up and went outside to sit on the patio. And we sat down. I'm dying to find out what happened that night. I knew he had gone to a contact, and I'm fresh after the contact, and I want whatever he can tell. I said, "Gee, Bill, can you tell me what happened last night?" He looked at me with kind of sad eyes, and he said, "I watched them murder a pope." I said, "You got to be kidding. We don't murder popes anymore. They might have done that in the Dark Ages. This is the modern world. We don't murder popes." He said, "I watched them murder a pope." And I said, "A pope?" This is Pope Paul VI. I said, "A pope? Can't be. And he said, "Yes." He said, "I watched everything on viewing screens." Now, this has never been published either. He said, they showed me a screen of the Vatican, several views in the Vatican, one of his desk, one of his bedroom, one in the kitchen. The Pope is getting ready for bed. He went to bed about 8:30 in the evening usually. And they all knew this. And his manservant is in the kitchen preparing a warm tea that he customarily took before he got into bed. And he's at a table in the kitchen preparing the tea, and there's a cardinal standing there in his cardinal's frock, cassock or whatever it is, with his hands in the pockets. And the manservant got the tray ready and looked at it, and then he left and went into through an arch at the side and over to another room to get a fresh linen napkin. While he was doing that, the cardinal took his hand out of his pocket with a little bottle in it, took the stopper out, put 2 drops in the tea, put the stopper back and put it back in his pocket. When the manservant came out, the cardinal was standing there just like he was before, with his hands in his pockets. The manservant picked up the tray and took it into that pope, left it with him, and came out and went about it about 5 minutes. Then he went down and opened the door and looked in on the Pope. If you remember, the Vatican put out the word that a chambermaid found him the next morning, that was the first one to see him dead. Well, there's a cardinal saw him dead before that. When he was sure that he wasn't moving, wasn't breathing, he went to the Pope's office and took a folder off the desk. And the lady showed Meier on the screen what was in the folder. It was a report of the losses of the Vatican, huge loss, millions of dollars of losses from the Vatican treasury and bad investments with the mafia. And the Pope had discovered, that Pope, Paul VI, had discovered this and was going to report the loss the next morning, going to call a news conference, report the loss, and appoint an...
Yeah, there's 107 in and 46 thumbs up. We can get that to 50 at least. That'll do me. Thank you.
Investigative committee. Well, the investigative committee would have got several of the people that are involved in the loss. The treasurer, the highest ranking cardinal that serves as the secretary for that pope, and a couple others. And so Meier says, then they told him what chemical was used was in the bottle. And it's a chemical, I don't remember the name now, but the chemical is a chemical that's used by intelligence that causes, for assassinations, that causes a cramp in the heart that lasts about 10 minutes, long enough to kill you. And the chemical is so volatile that it evaporates out of the body in the heat of the body itself and is gone by the time any autopsy or anything like that could be performed.
So that's the end of that. So what do you think of Wendelle Stevens? And I've got a list here, so if you want to write down names now, and I will do a live watch along on Thursday with this. I might do it on StreamYard and then get a few people up, because I'm off work on the Friday, so we can have a drink, have a laugh, get people up. If you got any stories, save it, come and tell me on Thursday. So we've got Dolores Cannon, and we've got Antarctica. Anybody else you want me to cover or look into covering? Sky is falling, by the way. The guy responsible was found hung on a bridge. I will reach out to that Dolores Cannon thing and do that. Thank you for the new subscribers, by the way. I do appreciate it. It does come through. And thank you for the super chats. It's all towards the telescope, which I'm hoping to buy next week. Or is it this week? The end of this week. Hopefully I'm going to get it. And then I can set it up and do some live streams like that as well. I want to basically cover everything on this channel. The past, the present. We can try and guess the future. Do some live streams and just cover everything, because some people don't want to see the current shit. They want to watch the past. And if you watch the current stuff, you're not aware of the past stuff. This is a good channel for that, because I do the archive stuff. There's stuff on there that you probably will not have seen. So make sure to check that playlist out. The live watch-alongs are in the live watch-along playlist. I do interrupt every now and again. That was an hour and 14 minutes long. This stream's an hour and 35. So I've not interrupted that much on this one. So I'll still get some Karen or moaning. Oh, you're always talking in your live watch-along. Then I comment back with a sarcastic thing, and then they don't bother. Can you look into Greyfriars Bobby Ma? Greyfriars Bobby. What's that? Talk with Tiago for the telescope stuff. Well, I'm going to speak to Moonman on TikTok. Moonman's good. Put your thumbs up, show some support. Yes, please drop some thumbs up, please. That really does help. And I will be live on Thursday, so no video Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm going to have a break. Thursday, Friday, I'll be back at it. I've uploaded quite a few videos last few days, so make sure to check them out, especially the alien interview tape one, because I've added some stuff to that which people don't look at because they're too lazy research. Just looking at the video, they don't do the research on that tape. Big Edinburgh case. Sounded Scottish then. Good live. Cover the fake alien invasion. Do you mean Blue Beam? You want me to do a Blue Beam live? I could do a Blue Beam live and go through the history of it and stuff like that, and put videos up and who's spoken about, if that's what you mean. That's why I watch your channel, because it's interactive, not all talking. Yeah, what do you think? Like, do you think it's better on here when I put the chat on the screen, or do you think it's better when people use StreamYard and they bring people's chat up intermittently and stuff? I think it's better if you're constantly on the screen. You can go back and you can see your comments and stuff, can't you? It's a dog. Very interesting, great live, thank you. Telekinesis. What about telepathy tapes? Would you be interested in that? I'm going to put it down anyway, because I am interested in telepathy tapes. What about like another live with the Book of Ra, the Ra tapes? There's hundreds of them. I could pick one of them randomly and just go through one of them. I'll put that down anyway as an idea. I'm just trying to cover everything for people, because I know some people come in and they're like, I'm not interested in Wendelle Stevens because they don't believe him and something like that, which is fine. So I want to make sure that when they do pop in again, it might be something that does pique their interest, and then they'll stay subscribed and stuff like that. So I've got to cover everything on it. Yeah, better on the screen. Yeah, I think it's better on the screen. Telekinesis. I'll put telekinesis down. What about demons? Demon shit. I have got a few interviews lined up. Obviously I want to get Kaz on. Brad back on. That was a popular one. I'll probably get Mark Christopher Lee back on again. I am reaching out again to James Fox, try and get him on this month. The telepathy tapes one is one I really do like. I really want to cover that. I think there's something to it. I covered the trafficking side of it with the fall of the cabal, which is I'll give you a warning. Don't watch it if you easily get upset and stuff. Or just, you know what, just watch it. Don't be soft. You need to know about it. I didn't enjoy doing the live on that because I didn't enjoy what was being discussed in it, and I had to clip a few of the images out because I didn't even realise that some of the images were going to be on that. So it's been a long time since I'd watched it. I'd only watched it once. Have you done Dan Barish? I haven't done Dan Barish, actually. That's a good idea. I've seen Polarity did that recently. The thing is with Polarity, right, I'll do one, and then he's either done it just before me, or I'll do one, and then I've done it just before him. Which I will cover the stuff that Polarity does well. I just don't want to do it in the same month. I'd like to do it at a different time and give my own different input to it and stuff like that. He asked a question on X, actually. I answered him before. He said, what are people's opinions on that frazzle drip and stuff like that? And I gave my opinion. If you want to get to the bottom of frazzle drip, you're going to have to go on the dark web, and I'm not willing to do that anymore. The Podesta stuff is where you should start on that. That's what I commented. And the voice where you hear the person screaming, where he's torturing this person. As for the Hillary Clinton stuff and the pizza stuff and the face peeling, yeah, you're going to have to get the truth on that. You're going to have to go on the dark web, because that's where they do all the drops, apparently, and stuff like that. They don't do it on the indexed, which is the 5% of the internet. They do it on the... There's more stuff on the dark web than there is on the index stuff that we use every single day. I'll let you on a cosmic secret. They particularly like strawberries, brambles, and other edible berries. They also like ice cream and sometimes chocolate. They absorb nutrients through the skin. And how would you know that? Stockwar Hugmore 26. Have you looked into 9/11 being part of Project Bluebeam? Do you know, there's a documentary, actually. What was it called? Loose Change. Do you remember Loose Change? I could probably live stream that and we could watch that together. That's not going to be copyrighted, but it'll probably get flagged. But I'll put it down anyway. Loose Change. That's another good one for people that haven't seen it. 99. Thank you so much, Astra, for that. That goes straight to the telescope. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Times are hard, and they're going to get harder at the minute because of this oil. And something very suspicious with Trump saying that they've come up with a deal. But yet the Iranians are saying they've not even been fucking speaking to Trump, which tells me, I think the UK have got involved and said, listen, the plan you're going to go with doesn't work. You can tell the UK have not been involved with this. You can tell it's US and Israel. And I don't mean any offence to the United States, but they have all the gear but no idea. Without the UK intel and the way they are so smart, and they've done it for hundreds of years, they're the best in the world. With the intelligence and how to do things, you can just tell they've not had a part to play in this Iran stuff. I think it'd have happened a lot smoother than it has, and I think these 5 days is so they can go over what the implications are going to be if they attack the fucking electricity, so whatever it is, the power grids and stuff like that. Anything David Icke, yeah. I don't think David Icke stuff's copyrighted. It's all over the place, isn't it? David Icke. I've already done. What about there was a young lad, I've got his name before, I forgot. Summit Clay is called. He died mysteriously, and you got Max Spears. I've done Max Spears. I might put another Max Spears on, because Max Spears is an interesting guy. Maybe go through some more John Lees. Bob Lazar? Are we bored of Bob Lazar now? We've got Project Gravatar coming up, 3rd of April. So we'll leave Bob Lazar because we're going to have something new on it. So we'll see. I'll do videos on that instead. There's just so much to cover. It's just, I'll think, right, I'm going to do a video on this, and I'll get on and think, I don't want to do this. I want to do that one instead. I want to do that one. And then I'm realising that I don't want to be just doing what I want to do. I want to, you direct me what you're interested in. Project Bluebeam will pop off in Iran. Well, we've seen something. Did you see this the other day? What was it? Let me see if I can find it. It was on X, I think. Give me a second. Let me show you this. It's shown like a UFO next to an orb. A UFO next to a missile.
Than what he did say. What he didn't say was restraint. Again,
see it there, look.
Raising the specter or the possibility that we may be looking at a more significant escalation, possibly in the form of a ground attack, as so many have been speculating in these last couple of days, about troop and military hardware movement, Anderson.
That wasn't Mikey, by the way. It was something on the screen because he's recording off the telly. So he's recording off the telly, which is better. You know it's not fake. He's recording off the telly. Whatever that was looked like. Let me just move my fucking fat head out of the way. If you just have a look at what it does with this. It does seem to do something to this projectile.
In these last couple of days, troop and military hardware movement, Anderson.
Look at that. That projectile shoots off up like it's been pushed away.
How did it?
Talked about last hour, Anderson.
What's that?
To President Biden's remarks, I think it was less about what he didn't say than what he did say. What he didn't say was restraint. Again, raising the specter of the possibility that we may be looking at a more significant escalation, possibly in the form of a ground attack, as so many have been speculating in these last couple of days, troop and military hardware movement, Anderson.
I love watching your live stoned. Listen, smoking Jamaican Woodbine when I was younger is what got me into this topic. You save the world when you're on that stuff sometimes, don't you? So, yeah, that's that. So I've got some ideas now. What about Bashar? Is people interested in Bashar? I'll put him down anyway because I know a few people say he is. I do want to speak to B.A. Crisps as well, the person that gave me the information on Bigelow being the source for the text message that said he's going to push the president for a partial disclosure. I want to get her up because she's an author of a book called The Red Bird. She's got loads of fascinating information on the Tibetan Bon, which I know absolutely jack shit about. So, fuck knows what questions I'm going to ask. But basically, she can just come up and talk and tell us about it. I like getting people up that I have no idea. Like Brad, I know little bits about it, but I've not taken DMT. I can't go through what happens when you take DMT. I don't know. But you hear all sorts. You see leprechauns. You see little miniature things. What I've always thought, whether there's other life inside us which we don't see in another dimension, part of us. Do you know what I mean? I've always wondered that, the way the way they describe things, like it's coming out of their body and stuff, like whether we've got something that we can't see living amongst us, in us. Yes, go for her, Matt. Yeah, I'll reach out to her. She's willing to come on, by the way. She's just been busy. I think she's been away. Politics ruins everything. It does. I think the UFO topic and geopolitics are merging. Well, I think they've always been connected in the background. We've just been lied to. Do you know when you get so deep into this topic, you see everything's just bullshit. Like everything. You just see right through it and you think, we are just fucking lied to on a daily basis. And it winds me up when you talk to people at work or wherever and you say, well, I've not seen it on BBC. Why is it not on the news? Well, it's not going to be on the fucking news. Go and research who fucking runs the news, you daft twat. Do you know, it really winds me up. That's another side of it. They don't... Go and let your fucking kids watch a Disney movie, for fuck's sake. Yeah, look at that dick in the background. Fucking... They don't understand. That's the biggest thing when I've not seen it on the news. I fucking hate that. I absolutely hate that. That Bashar guy doesn't interest me. It doesn't really interest me, but I'm willing to do it if enough people are interested, or if I find a video that connects with some of the stuff. What about Bledsoe? Some of his stuff. I'm not a massive Bledsoe fan. You see what he put on X? His son said, I think it's disrespectful that people aren't mentioning the Bledsoes when they see an orb. What the fuck? Is it a bird? Is it a plate? No, it's a Bledsoe. Fuck off. I swear, people think they own this topic. You not think that when you see these people, they think they own this topic. If they've not had that information, then it's bullshit. They are the bee's knees on this. No, you're not. You're just a daft cunt like everyone else. Your platform's a bit bigger, and I've noticed that since doing my channels. I'm the same person I was when I had 0 followers on TikTok, and I'm the same person 260,000 followers later on TikTok. I'm exactly the same person. Not changed one bit, and I'll be exactly the same if one day at fucking 10 million on YouTube. I will not change. I don't care. These people just think that they own the niche, and it's like, well, look, no, I don't think it's real because I've not heard it, and well, fuck off. Really winds me up. Like people just, and some of the levels of research on these big so-called podcasts is just so lazy and lame. It's like they just jumped on the niche. They've got no background to it. My subscribers know more than a lot of these podcasters, and I know that because I speak to them regularly and stuff like that. You know a lot more on this subject than these people. You should make your own channels. We need more people just making channels. Oh crap, my bad. What's up? Bledsoe's timeline changing to August. Yeah, Bledsoe, well, Brad told us this. Brad, if you've not seen the interview that I did with Brad, let me just show you it so you know which one it is. Brad, that's a really good interview. Talks about something that's going to happen. Let me get the video up for you. It is... this one here. DMT expert Brad of Arc. I've also done Mark Christopher Lee. These two interviews are very good, by the way. Got a lot of traction on X and stuff like that. I got interesting information from him. So I think the way to go forward is to get interviews going, because I seem to always get something from someone and ask the questions that you ask. That's the thing in it. Like there seems to be set questions. It's the same shit on every podcast, and I hate that. I want to ask off the cuff questions that people think stupid, but they're always the best, and you get the best answers. That's me. David Pye. I can't recall his name. David Pye. Is that someone you want me to look at to do with what? David Pye. I will check all these, by the way. You know, listen. I'm not going anywhere. I'll do every single one on this list. Guardians of the Galaxy. Max Spears. I've already done a Max Spears one if you want to check that out. It is somewhere in my past live streams. This is what I do recommend these if you've not seen this. The Fall of the Cabal. To the right hand side here. Part 1 and Part 2. Altogether it's 3.5 hours. Part 1's an hour and a half. Second part's 2 hours. There's some muted sections in Part 1, but not... stick with it. Part 2, there should be no thingies. I've trimmed that out instead because I learnt my mistake from Part 1. Let me have a look. Max Spears, I did a while back, so you can check that one out if you want. And that woman, Mother Goddess, Arizona Wild, or whatever she's called, she's another good one that you should watch as well. Plenty of stuff there if you're on the old Jamaican Woodbine and you want something to watch. That shit will do. Watch the DMT one, I'd recommend if you not watch that pace. If you're smoking some wacky backy there. Who made that video? Everything you've been told is a lie. Is that the guy that Polarity uses? Things are going to get weirder and weirder when everything's... I can't remember what he says, but is that the guy you mean? We've been lied to. The interview with Brad was one of the best pieces of work, I think. One of your best pieces of work. I think the interview is the way to go. It's just I want different people on. Brad, that's the second interview I've done with Brad. So there is one more on my channel if you want to search that as well. Richard Doty, if you've not seen that interview, it's 3 hours and a bit long. That's another famous one. Richard Doty never recovered from that interview. So again, every interview we seem to do seems to fuck shit up or causes some waves when it gets clipped on X. Simon Holland, that's another interview I did. I actually did that one with Mark Christopher Lee, and I think Simon Holland thought that Mark Christopher Lee was a guest, and he thought that I was rude to Mark by not asking him questions. I think that's generally because he was like, yeah, so Mark, what do you think? And I'm thinking, hold on, I'm hosting here. He's co-hosting. I think and then later I thought, did he think that I was just interviewing them both and just ignoring Mark? And I think that's what he did. But we got an interesting thing about, what's it called? Stanley Kubrick and that Eyes Wide Shut. We got some interesting thing that went viral. It's been seen by millions of people on X. By Tupa and Red Panda shared the shit out of that. Who else we got? We got Patrick Jackson. Some of them are multi-hosted. The Richard Doty one's annoying because we interrupt each other. I get it. I apologise, but we get good answers. And I've done a couple on my own, and I've done a couple where it's just me and someone else. Found it, mate. Amazing watch. Everything you know is wrong. Lloyd Pye. Let me put that in. Lloyd Pye. How long's the video? And is it one that I could actually stream and watch along, or is it like a copyrighted one? Could you tell? Richard Doty, I can't stand. Listen, I can't stand Richard Doty as well, but we got some interesting answers from him. It's well worth a watch. It's probably one of the better, because you've seen just a bunch of lads from the UK asking him questions and just interrupting. I look back and I cringe. I interrupt sometimes and stuff like that. I get it, but we didn't know how long. We thought we was going to get him for like half an hour now. We had him for 3 and a bit hours. And I play on his age. You know, you're getting old. You're scared you're going to get dragged in for the crimes you've done. He's like, no, I've not done anything wrong. So, and then Antarctica, he said, I can't say anything. And then he asked the question and I took him back. He went, a massive cavern opened up and stuff like that. So I got little things. And then I asked him, are we going to get a deathbed confession? You know, things, fucking things that don't get asked to people like that. And we asked him. He said he would come into Manchester, so I'm going to get him pissed and stuff like that. That's what you want in an interview. You want to laugh as well, don't you? You just want off-the-cuff questions. Yes, he was slammed there, and he's very quiet now. Yeah, I think his wife's ill, though, so I'm not going to give many shit. I actually like him. I think he's... This is what I'm going to say about Richard Doty. You only know of Richard Doty because he told you about himself. He's that good at his job. So when people say don't listen to... You've got to listen to people like Richard Doty, not for the alien and UFO truth, but on how he works, how his brain works, how it operates, and what we can learn. Because if you have to be so naive to think that there are not more Richard Dotys now in this day and age, and we're probably seeing it in Lou Elizondo, could be David Grush. I'm not saying it is, but it could be. Could be all these people. It could be Chris Mellon. Could be all sorts, just playing us. It could be Ross Coulter. It could be Jeremy Corbell. It could be George Knapp. George Knapp could be the GOAT. He could be the most, but I don't think it is. But what I'm saying to you is there are people that will be doing that job role right now on X, on TikTok, and on YouTube, going on podcasts, big podcasts, because I've always said disinformation will follow a journalist. I never call myself a journalist, I call myself a researcher. When you become a journalist, disinformation will always follow a journalist. I listen to everything, dismiss what resonates. So yeah, you've got to have use your own brain on this and your own research. I get it if you're new to it. It's an absolute nightmare to research this. I would not like to start researching this topic now, because I'd be starting with Lou Elizondo and stuff like that. That's not where you want to start. You want to start with Bob Lazar, Bill Cooper, Bill Moore, Wendelle Stevens, Rob Dean, Jacobs. You want to start there. You don't want to start here. So I love to do the archive stuff and the past stuff, because that's where you need to go. Back on Blinking. Sorry, it was brilliant. I listened to I read that one. I agree. Right, I think we're good call. Thank you for that super chat, by the way, again. I really appreciate it. And everybody else that goes to my telescope, which you will all get to see because you'll be in the lives and you'll be able to piss about with me and see what we can see. Hopefully we can find an alien on the moon or something. It's got a lens as well, so you can observe the sun, flares and all that kind of stuff. And I'll be adding to it. This won't be the only telescope I'll get. Whatever I can't do on this one, another one, so I can cover all angles. And hopefully while I'm doing a live, I could have a moon shot there, just constantly there for people to see what we can do. The sun might be hard because I think we only get summer. We get it on a Tuesday this year in England, and then that's it. We could do watch-alongs with some of Taken series. Thanks for recommending. That would definitely be copyrighted, though. I'd love to. What we could do that in a Discord. We could have like a watch thing. I know Polarity likes to do stuff like that, watch-alongs. It's having the time to do that. You've got to remember, this is a full-time job for him. I've got a full-time job. This is not my main source of income. This is a hobby that I think I'm good at, and I've got a lot of knowledge on, and I want to share that with people and create a community. It's not really something that I'm chasing as an income. If money comes, great, but I want the truth, not a salary. And I say that all the time, and I think that's why a lot of these people lose themselves. They get so good, and then people get bored of them because it's obvious they're just about the money. They get these guests on, they never have any follow-ups. They just drop them like they're a dirty little whore and move on. Sure, summer was last week. Yeah, today. Well, yeah, the other day. We had summer the other day. Stanley Romanek, ufology. That's another one. I'll put him in as well, Stanley Romanek, if you want to do him. What about Whitley Strieber, the guy that got an 8-inch, 9-inch, 10-inch fucking probe stuck up his bottom? Should we do that one? I think we should do that one as well, maybe. So we'll put Whitley on. Whitley. Stan Romanek. What about Alistair Crowley and stuff and Lamb? Got Lamb there, Alistair Crowley. If you don't like the weather where you live, wait 5 minutes. I don't get that, actually. I've just laughed at something. I didn't get the joke, sorry. I just didn't want to be rude. I didn't get your joke, sorry. I shouldn't have laughed. I do that all the time. The amount of people have laughed at and I walk away and think I didn't even get that joke. That's just shit. I didn't get it. Whitley's good. Yeah, we'll do Whitley. I'm not a massive fan of Whitley, though, I'll be honest with you. One guy and a probe. that'll be the thumbnail. 10 inches. That's what I'll get Grok to edit Whitley's face to go. And then like a 10-inch probe. And me holding it. Like that. Or him holding it. I'll edit him into it. Is that why Whitley's always smiling? It's always cosmic smile. That's why he goes back. He gets wheelbarrowed around the spaceship. He can't sit on bar stools anymore anyway. Just slivers over it. Like that. One guy and one probe. That's like one girl, one cup. Or is it two girls, one cup? Can't remember. So a friend said. Don't know. Never seen it. I think we're done, folks. I've got a nice big list there. What I will ask you to do, though, if you don't mind, is as soon as I hit end broadcast, it's live, the video, but all the comments disappear because that's part of the live stream. If you could just drop back to the video and drop a nice comment or a troll comment, take the piss out of me, I don't care. That would really help the video as well, and it shows that people enjoyed it and they come back to thing it. So all I ask people is always keep your eyes to the skies because the next story could be yours. Good night, God bless, and please come back and drop a comment as soon as I hit end right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good night.